another beautiful day. I finally figured the recipe. A bit of give and take. In life it is what you make it. Nothing petty can get to me. A little bit of slow, a little bit of go, a little bit of high, a little bit of low. Ooh, live for the moment. Ooh, live for the time. Ooh, live for the moment. Now you get yours and I'll get mine. I wanna sing 1,000 times a day so I could get you higher to the ground. Whatever you need to enjoy the way to be inside the moment of the now. A little bit of slow, a little bit of go, a little bit of high, a little bit of low. Ooh, live for the moment. Ooh, live for the time. Live for the moment. Now you get yours and I'll get mine. I got this one choice in my pocket and I'm reaching for that place. Gonna pull out all my might and shine away. I got this one choice in my pocket and I'm reaching for that place. Gonna pull with all my might and shine away. Live for the moment. Gonna live for the moment. Ooh, live for the time. You get yours and I'll get mine. Get you high. Get you
Tonight, we are going to replay some of the topics that we talked about in the Evolve podcast, like design, music, photography, and video. We are going to replay those together and listen back to some of these amazing conversations. The first category we will look at is design. The conversations and the interviews, especially with Tucker, were amazing in this category. And maybe I'm biased because this is more my category, but learning about design from these creators was really great. Just to hear other perspectives on their work and how they tackle what is required of them, how they see the world, how they use color has just been really helpful in helping me with my work and getting feedback and the importance of that. So let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Evolve podcast. We have Tucker with us here today.
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So you recently moved here to Vermont. Tell me about that and your journey coming here.
Well, golly, it was a long journey. For me, like, I never thought that I'd ever move to Burlington. But just kind of like through a chain of events, I just kind of ended up here. It started kind of like when I was just starting to figure out that I was interested in design, and it was kind of costly. I was in the middle of my junior year studying economics, and I was an art minor. And my art teacher is kind of the one who suggested, hey, there's a design college, Savannah College of Art and Design down the road. And, you know, I think you should give it a shot. And that's when I really like dove into design. And I ended up meeting Joe Lord at SCAD. And we, you know, became acquaintances and reconnected in Brooklyn. And he had presented this opportunity kind of in passing on how he was, you know, thinking about moving to Brooklyn and starting this whole thing. And at the time I was like, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to pass. Like Burlington, excuse me, Burlington. I was in Brooklyn. So, you know, when I came to visit, it was like for a weekend and it was really cold. And I was like, nope, not happening.
This weather's not for me.
No, not at all. So, anyways, I was in Brooklyn for 3 years and I ended up getting burnout really badly and moved to Northern California just to kind of focus on my spiritual and mental health. And, you know, I made sure that I was kind of taking on light freelance projects to kind of keep my head in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I didn't
Keep your mind
want to
engaged.
keep my mind engaged and make sure that, you know, I was still learning. And, you know, if I were to get back into the world of design, you know, in my head, I was moving back to New York, kind of spitting myself back out there. But something in me was like, you know, Joe had presented it again when I was in Northern California. And something in me was like, yeah, I think, you know, it's almost like I was like following my peace. And so Joe graciously met me in Jackson, Wyoming, where I drove from Northern California, and then joined me on that journey to drive all the way to Burlington across the country. And lo and behold, I'm here.
How was that road trip across the United States? I've never done it, and so I'm always like, how was it for you?
We had to get, I mean, we probably broke it up into like 3 days.
Yeah, it's always
because we had to like get back at a certain point. And there were some ups and downs. I mean, we were driving like 12 hours a day split between the both of us, but we made some trips. We saw Mount Rushmore. That whole place.
That's so cool.
That whole place was very interesting. I mean, they had everything. I mean, we were laughing at it the whole way. So, and then we went to the Badlands, which were really cool. Made a couple, like, you know, Joe's a photographer, so we made a couple photo ops, you know. But it was fun, you know. We stayed at good hotels and then we stayed at bad hotels, but we ended up getting here.
You got to get a variety in there, you know.
Yeah,
that's the way it
and
is.
you know, my car made it, and then
That's good. Always good.
Couple days later, it completely stalled out.
Love that.
So it's kind of like, welcome to Burlington. Your car's, you know, not working, and you don't have an apartment yet.
So you mentioned that you came here to Burlington, started, you know, continued working with Joe. How was that first week here doing the work that you do? And what is the work that you do here at Rev?
Yeah, so the first week was tough because all I wanted to do was like jump right on it, be productive, be here the full 8 to 9 hours a day. But, you know, the more I tried, it was like I needed to take time to get grounded.
Yeah,
and
to adjust and get
situated.
acclimated, for sure.
Yeah, because the first 2 weeks were just, I mean, they were really bad. Like, I couldn't think straight because, like, I didn't have an apartment. So it took me a long time to get started. And so I came over here to be Joe's creative director, which, of course, for me, like, I have 4 years of experience of being a designer. Creative director is just something I'm kind of like growing into. It's not, you know, it's something that, you know, I have to, you know, go through. You know, it's not something that I feel like I've
Mastered.
I've mastered yet, you know, because creative director is very, you know, it's a very big title. And for me, I've kind of like, I've had a lot of projects where I've, you know, been able to start and finish without any sort of, you know, be my own art director, creative director, and just be client facing. So I've had that, but not so much like a team that I'm like directing. But, you know, I've been in that atmosphere, so I've seen it from the other side. So growing into that will be a process, but I'm embracing it, you know?
And I think you're doing well. And I mean, there's always that period, like, you know, of transition, especially when moving. You know, moving is one of those really big life changes.
Yeah.
So, you're doing great. And
Burlington's growing on me.
yeah,
I mean,
Burlington's, I feel like Burlington's easy to acclimate to a little bit. It's very welcoming. It's very,
Yeah.
very open. So I think, I hope that you feel like you're in the right place.
yeah. I mean, fall hit and then I fell,
Yeah.
And
As does
love.
everyone.
I was like, wow.
Right. So
Willy Wonka land out there.
it is.
Yeah.
So, kind of going back to what you were talking about with your work here at Rev, what is your style and how would you say it is shown through the work that you do here with Rev and with your clients?
So I like to, my whole entire thing or mantra is to create something original. And I think that's kind of like what I've, kind of like what designers thrive for, because it's kind of hard to do when, there's so much out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like striving to make something original that no one's seen before. I always try to look for like new styles of designs, how I can like broaden. And I'm like still learning, like still trying to expand my, design horizon, so to speak. So I'm not sure if it's much of a style, but more of like a mindset to push myself. And it's like, for me, it's trying to, design something better than my last project. So always constantly being my own, competing against myself,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Being your own critic, but in the best way too.
Yeah, in the best way, and sometimes
In the negative
gets
way.
in the negative way.
Yeah,
So it's good
absolutely.
to have, eyes on things, and I like to bounce between projects, because otherwise I'll get,
I do the same thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's helpful for me to multitask, because I can step away from the project
Mm-hmm.
and then come with kind of a new
Perspective.
perspective.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
sometimes like stepping away from it, and then all of a sudden you have that aha moment when you're like in the shower,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have your shower, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to try that
I
out.
know what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I do that all the time with people. Like when I'm working on a design or working, especially like in Procreate, I'll send it to a friend of mine and who is also in school with me doing design work, and I'll just ask for her opinion. I'm like, what looks good? What needs changing? I'm like, I want that honest feedback.
yeah.
Don't hold back.
Yeah.
I think that's been really helpful, and she'll do the same for me. And I'm giving her my feedback,
Yeah.
and we have two very different perspectives. And I think
Yeah.
that helps really shape and make what we're doing more, well-rounded and better. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's always the best thing. If you have somebody that knows how to give constructive feedback,
Yes.
it's
utilize it.
It's great, but like I'm sure Joe knows, like being at SCAD, the college that we went to, there was both good critique and bad critique.
Yes.
You have to know how to give it in a constructive way, to where that person is more motivated to change this and that, and less like discouraged with. You have to be careful with your words.
Yeah, you do.
To build that trust with somebody who can give you equally the same amount of feedback,
Giving critique too is it's a tricky balancing game, because you don't, especially with the relationship maybe that you have with the person, you don't want to, say absolutely everything negative about it, but also
Right.
having that balance between here's what you could improve on, here's what's good.
Yeah.
How do we
Yeah.
blend that in to create something that, is either happy for you, for the client, for whoever
Yeah,
you're doing it for.
exactly. Like trying to expand a thought process and trying to get that person just kind of like broaden their ideas. Because I think one of the biggest loopholes for designers is falling in love with a design without, other people's feedbacks.
Yeah.
I kind of look at as dating. When you come up with a bunch of different designs, you're just kind of dating each one of them, seeing which one works
That's great.
out. And then you get your mom's approval and, but that's a horrible analogy. That's an analogy.
No, I get what you're going.
But you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I got you.
As a designer, it's crucial to seek other people's feedback. Otherwise, it's hard for you to grow. And And it's like there are growing pains being a designer, and it's you can't be afraid to ask for help, because the moment you stop asking for help and stop asking for feedback is the moment that you stop growing. And so that's why it's important to do that. And with Evolve, which you're heavily involved with, you can.
Yeah, and with the Evolve network, we have, different circles with design and film and photography where people can still post their work, still get that feedback, even though, we're not doing Evolve Awards again right now. We will again for the future, but just still having that critique and that feedback.
Yeah, and you know what? When I was an economics major, I had no idea what graphic design was.
Very different. Yeah.
I transferred and declared graphic design without really knowing what it was. I just kind of like dove into it. So Evolve Network is really good because you can ask all sorts of questions because there's so many different niches of design and illustration. I mean, it's just like such a wide range of possibilities that, I mean, I had no idea were even there. So if you're like an artist, but you're just not really sure like where your niches are, I mean, it's good to know what those niches even are just so you can, explore the possibilities. And for me, like I started out with being a fine artist, and I started out like incorporating handwritten type in my art pieces. And I think that's when my teacher was like, why are you like doing this and you're an economics major? Like, what's going on? Do you really want to see yourself in a suit and tie every day? And I was like, no. So I guess that's when that was
suit and ties
born.
are for you. This is
So it would have been nice to have that that resource so I could like kind of reach out and see and get advice on how I can dive into these kind of things. And
well, hey, you got on that track sooner rather than later, I'd say, in life. So that's good. So how do you stay on top of the latest design trends? What platforms or resources or people that are you utilizing?
So I think Instagram is probably the main resource I use just because I'm on it a lot, but I make a point to follow like some of like the top designers I know, and then the AIGA, which is the kind of the National Institute for Graphic Design. And they always like have kind of like the top trends on there. And of course, I mean, they're different Instagrams for all sorts of things. Things like typography, color scheme, and just kind of like staying on top of that and paying attention to what's out there, what's getting attention, keeping your mind open to inspiration, and just having like an eye on design. And I think the other resource I like to use is Behance, where it's just kind of like it's a platform where all designers post their projects, and it's where like the more attention a project gets, the more it's highlighted on the website. So you're able to see like kind of the best projects. And usually it shows kind of like the whole process. So just like staying on top of the best of the best and how you can, try and do better, how you can make it better. Neat. So
I haven't heard of that resource, so I'll have to look at that too.
So Behance, AIGA, and of course just Instagram handles. And I'm sure a lot of you follow design Instagram handles without really paying attention to it, but yeah.
And I found too, like, even just, and this might just be what's on my TikTok, but I've stumbled across just a lot of accounts just doing like Procreate designs or like Illustrator, and like learning what their styles are and watching people's like screen recordings of them, designing things or using different tools on software, whether it's like Adobe or Procreate, where there's been multiple times I've been watching and I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing on that software. So it's really cool just to really learn from other people and, experiment.
Yeah. And I mean, if you see something that you're like, you see something that's great, like don't get discouraged. Like you can do that too. It just takes time and patience, really. And so like going on there, like always keep in mind, like this is something that you can also do. It just, takes a lot of time and patience and asking questions, like asking, using Evolve and, some of these platforms and how-tos. I mean, YouTube's just an instant resource of how to learn to do something.
Tutorials everywhere.
Tutorials everywhere, right.
Yeah. So what have been some of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
I think the projects I like the most are the ones where I have the most creative freedom. For me, that was working at an agency that was kind of top of the real estate world and as far as advertising goes in Manhattan. And so they were taking on these commercial and residential high-rises across New York City, Brooklyn, and New Jersey, and kind of doing the whole creative across the board kind of face for these buildings. And so as a graphic designer, working on these, was a dream because, instead of working at these big name companies like Puma, ACLU, and Capital One, where their brand identity is already set in stone.
Yeah, very much so.
As far as thinking out of the box and being creative, that's kind of, it's kind of out of the window. So, I think one of my favorite projects was this one in which I was able to kind of have more creative freedom. And with these commercial and residential real estate, with hospitality branding in general, there are all sorts of deliverables like building signage, business cards, letterheads, website, and even like for one project, trolley design.
Wow.
There's all sorts of different applications that come with hospitality branding that I loved. And to be able to create something from the ground up, it's like you're making your mark on these big buildings that might outlive you. And to me, that gave me kind of like a sense of, leaving a legacy. It's like, and it's exhilarating to have these buildings branded with your designs, your signage, and to see it in the city and to have, in your head, you're thinking, wow, like millions and millions of people are looking at these. And even like, I remember with one of my projects, I did a subway blast. It was like a subway takeover
That's cool.
for 3 straight months. And it was just like, when I say takeover, it was like complete takeover. This was in Jersey City. And I don't know, it was just really cool.
Yeah, that's so rewarding.
I know, it was really rewarding. And that's kind of what I like about, that's how I really fell in love with design, is creating something from the ground up and being able to like show it to the world. And with real estate in New York, I mean, the exposure was just...
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that was... I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and that's so cool that you got that opportunity to do that,
Yeah,
especially
very
before coming
thankful.
here. Like you have something on a bigger scale, or in a bigger city at least. I think that's amazing that you have that opportunity.
And that was definitely my favorite job in New York. Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So what networks can we find you on?
Well, I have a website that's tuckervisualdesign.com. It would be tuckerolson.com, but my last name
No one can spell your last name.
is hard to spell, and there's a password on it, The Riverwalk, all undercase. And then I have an Instagram, Tucker with _T.
Nice.
Working on changing that. But Tucker with a T is the Instagram, and you can find me at Rev Studio on the daily in Burlington, Vermont.
Thank you for tuning in and listening. This was a great conversation. You can check out more like this at Evolve-Network. Would love to have you and give you feedback, give you critique on your work. Happy to do that. And check us out as well. We are introducing a new exclusive segment on our Instagram titled Exposed. Creatives share their most embarrassing moments. So jump onto our Instagram to watch this next part. We are so excited for the cringe. Let's go.
These days, you can pretty much search anything on YouTube and Google and have a tutorial pulled up in just minutes that'll show you exactly what you're looking to do. This was the case when I was 18, trying to decide if I was going to go to college or not. I figured out how to learn the software on my own, watching tutorials. But the problem was I couldn't make good art, and I was always insecure about what I did make. Tutorials are like learning how to drive. Foundation studies are learning how to become a mechanic and understanding how to drive, but also how to fix the vehicle when it's broken. An experienced artist knows why they make the creative decisions they make. It's not guesswork to us. If you'll indulge my metaphor one step further, I'll say that this course will be doing 3 things. 1, teaching you how to drive, knowing software and the basics, right? 2, teaching you where to drive, how to navigate your career. And 3, teach you how to fix and maintain your vehicle, the principles that make up great art. We'll start with the foundation studies, where I'll teach you essential principles of creating amazing art consistently, properly, so that you can know the rules, and when you want, you can intentionally break them. No more second guessing your choices, no more insecurity around not being qualified, no more imposter syndrome. Your mastery begins now. To become good, you need to begin. To become great, you need to know where to begin. Many times with authors, it takes weeks or months to craft the first few sentences of their book, right? It's why it takes a painter so long to prepare and think and plan before even making one brush stroke. That's why as a designer, I spend more time scribbling around in a notebook than tooling around in After Effects. The problem I see a lot with junior designers is they don't plan enough before starting. For the experienced designer, it begins with strategy and then moves into an experimentation of elements. My workflow typically begins with a small write-up about the project in general, asking important questions such as, who is this for? Where are they going to see it? What is the emotional response desired? These kinds of questions help set the scene for what I make and why I make it. Imagine if I was hired to make a movie, and before I wrote or purchased a script, before I planned out any of the narrative or scenes or story arc, I went and I hired celebrity talent to star in it. We're not even sure what the gender of the lead role will be yet, but I went out and signed somebody anyway. It's ridiculous, of course. It's the same way with diving right into software and trying to create something from nothing without any clear direction. In this next video, I'll introduce you to limitations and how sometimes for the artist, less is more. I've found for me and several other creatives I know who are world class at what they do, we thrive under pressure and rules. In this video, I'll give you 5 essential limitations to adhere to while creating commissioned work. Think about this. You're staring at a blank sheet of paper. It's staring back at you with limitless possibilities. You can use a pen, a pencil, chalk, charcoal, anything you can write with, any color you can think of, anywhere on the sheet. And then you can draw any number of things on the sheet. It can be overwhelming. A junior designer might begin by getting inspiration on Pinterest or Behance, but for an experienced designer, we start by asking questions. We start by limiting our options. So today I'm going to give you 5 essential limitations to put on yourself when beginning a project. 1, you must tell a story. What's the story being told here? 2, you must build the scale properly. And what's the composition size? Everything's got to be framed up, built within that size. 3, you must have a point of reference. Has the client included similar work that they like? Have you provided the client with a mood board? You got to know you guys are on the same page. 4, you must follow any client guidelines included. There could be a lot, there could be none. Are there brand guidelines? Does a logo have to be used? A certain font, a certain color palette? Is this going to be an animation or a poster? Is there legal copy that must be placed at the bottom of the video or at the end? And number 5, you must deliver this properly. Where's it going to be seen? Instagram or a billboard? CMYK or RGB colors? Is the audience waiting to click the skip ad button on YouTube after 5 seconds? Or are they thinking about changing the channel on television? Like, where is this going to be seen? What is the deliverable size? You know, the exact measurements, the pixels, DPI, is it going to be a GIF or an HD video? Where is this going to be seen? Because that really limits how you make what you make. You should be able to see how these questions limit the options available to you as you prepare to begin. You know, print versus video is an obvious one. But even the duration of time the viewer could be seeing this piece will determine a lot about your deliverable. Clarifying limitations of the expected deliverable may be the most important thing a commission designer can do, so that you are on the same page as the client. I think at some level, all creatives love problem solving. Learning the limitations the client will set ahead of time then gives you problems to solve, and your attention can hone in on making solutions that work for each piece. You can't let your mind go wild with ideas, gathering up inspiration and planning solutions until you know the limitations that your design must fall within. This is where junior designers will waste hours because they didn't bother to research the limitations before beginning. So do your homework first, and then you start strategizing. More on that in the next video.
Welcome to Evolve. My name is Elena Tall. I'm on the team here at Revolution Youth. Today we're going to be looking at Procreate specifically for the iPad. Now this is a pretty niche topic, but it is an amazing platform to create logos, stickers, sketch up photos, and really do a lot more with this. It is a great platform for Instagram, TikTok, anything you'd like to use it for. So we are going to jump in on a tutorial and kind of go over some projects with that today. So welcome to this little Procreate tutorial. We're going to be looking at Procreate specifically for the iPad. So this platform or program is it's similar to what you'd find on Adobe software, where you have layers, you can import photos, edit those photos, crop, draw on top of those. So there's a lot of really great opportunities with this. You can also just start from a blank slate and use the countless brushes, colors, fonts, and even import your own fonts into this program to really customize it the way that you want and what you need for a project. So Procreate is an app specifically for the iPad. There is a Procreate Pocket version for your iPhone, but I find it best and easiest to work on a big platform with a stylus or Apple Pencil and really use those brushes to the fullest. My favorite features are really the amount of brushes, the amount of opportunities you can use with those. Under each brush, you can customize it or completely make your own brush and add it to your favorites. As I've kind of created a style, I found that I really love chalk, chalk being the specific brush, and really kind of making that very opaque. It almost looks like a pencil. It's not fully opaque, but I really love using that to outline photos, outline people in photos. I think it creates a really great kind of sketch look, especially when you take that photo off. This app is, a one-time purchase, currently $10 on the App Store. Once you have that on the device, it is on there, ready to use whenever you would like to create work. So highly recommend Procreate. It's an amazing design tool, especially if you already have an iPad and you're looking to really get started with design. You don't have to go out and buy an Adobe subscription necessarily. You can, for $10, get this, play around, do tons of great things, play with logos. You can add in your pictures that you already have, and really just design on top of those. So you can really use this app for a lot of different avenues. You can create it for logo design for your clients, typography. It really has endless opportunities, even if you're looking just to create stationery or stickers. A lot of right now, the stickers that are being made and sold on platforms are made with Procreate. There's really tons of different avenues that you can go with this. So we're gonna dive into a tutorial here, creating a simple logo type art with a background, a little bit of some brush work and some line work, and let's get started. So we're gonna open up Procreate, and on that you'll see we have different stacks. We're going to click that plus button and open up a new stack, but first this is what we're going to be creating. Simple logo with a compass type feature or an spyglass. So we're going to go create a square canvas that's already been created for us. That'll open up into a blank document. We have some colors that we're going to choose from. Here I'm going to stick with the Everywhere Youth palette and choose the blue. Once I drag and drop that onto the board, we're going to add a new layer. Each new feature that we add on will have a new layer. So we're going through our brushes here. There's tons of different options. We're mostly going to stick with the monoline under calligraphy, just to create a smooth brush, smooth line at full opacity. I'm gonna go choose the solid white under S&B palette. Once I click that, that is my chosen color. I'm gonna change my brush size up to about 30%, and that is as big as we will go for the brush size for this tutorial. So I'll start to draw a circle. When I draw that, I will hold down with one finger and that will snap into place as a solid circle. You can click that little cursor button up at the top, make sure your magnetics are on, and adjust that to the center. That line should adjust to you and you'll be able to snap it where you'd want it. So once that is snapped, we're gonna go up and add a new layer. And well, we're duplicating that layer, and then we're going to shorten that a bit, narrow that a bit, create a circle inside the one we've just created. So essentially we're creating that inner and outer circle. That's a compass, and we will be taking off a bit of that outer circle again to just have our inner circle be what we're working with. So again, I'll click the eraser, make sure I'm on the correct layer, and I'm going to go through and just erase a diagonal section on that outer circle. You can see that I am going through, making those edges look straight, and then we'll go and do the bottom one, making sure that they're relatively the same size. Doesn't have to be perfect, as this is still a sketch type of design. Not looking for perfect here. So we'll go back and select or grab a new layer, and what we're going to begin to do is create that middle design with the hills. We're going to put the brush at 15% now, half of what we had before, and I'm going to start with still being on the monoline brush, still on the solid white. We're going to make sure that streamline is all the way up, so that is a nice smooth line. Now you're going to draw hills on the bottom. I chose to do one big one in the middle, and as you'll see, you can click the undo on the left and really go back and make it as perfect as a hill as you would like. I chose 3 just to keep the odd number there, because it's normally better to have either 3 or 5. Kind of looks better to the eye. So you'll see I kind of do 2 little mountain hills there, go off and do another hill to your left and another hill to the right. And I'm kind of adjusting the canvas as I see fit. It's easier for me as a right-handed person to often tilt it and draw versus drawing it straight on. Once those lines are set, I can always grab the eraser and erase if I need to go back. Here I am selecting it with that top cursor and actually taking that little green circle and rotating this slightly, just so that the ends are level and horizontal. Next, you'll grab the eraser and just touch that up a bit, and it's on a separate layer than that circle, so we don't have to worry about erasing the circle when we do that. So we'll create a new layer with the plus, make sure I'm on brush again. I'm gonna bring it down even smaller to about 5%. Now we'll start just doing those lines within each mountain section. These don't have to be perfect, but generally evenly spaced. Some of them I will be tighter, create tighter lines at one end to kind of make a leading line towards the center. Again, here, making about 3 to 4 lines in that middle section. So now we have our 3 hills, some leading lines, and we'll go in and make a new layer. Still on the monoline brush, still on white. So now we'll zoom in and we're gonna start creating trees. So once you make that line, if you hold your pen down, it'll make it nice and straight. Go through after and you can add in the branches. I went in and duplicated this layer, so I didn't have to go in and create that tree again. So instead of going through on a new layer with the brush and creating a new one, I can go back, duplicate that layer, and move that where I would like. You can also see that you can adjust it, flip it horizontally, vertically, and adjust it to where you need. So I'll scale it back down, kind of make trees with different sizes just to change it up, make sure it's dynamic, and that they all don't look the same, because in real life they all don't look the same. So gonna go through, make a new layer. This time I'll draw, still with my monoline brush, back on that far left hill. So each of the hills has a tree. And again, I'm sticking with 3 trees. Odd numbers normally look better when it comes to art and design. So I'm gonna stick with either 3 or 5 trees. Here I chose 3, each one for the hill. So we're gonna wanna add a sun next. So again, keeping each thing on a new layer, gonna create a new layer, make sure I'm still on that monoline. And here I'm drawing a circle, holding it down with another finger, so I'm creating an ellipse. I'll go through and click edit shape sometimes and make sure that that is snapped to where I want it, and that is a full circle. We're gonna be actually erasing part of this circle, so we won't need the whole thing. Again, I'm making sure I'm on that layer, bringing the brush size up, clicking eraser, moving the brush size up and erasing that half, just so that it looks like we have a sun peeping out from the right corner. So I'll go and create another layer. And I'm going to want to start to add 3 little birds, simple lines, but they create the illusion of birds flying. So they're gonna be really elongated M's is what you're gonna be wanting to do. So here I clicked the undo button, didn't like what I did, so I can always go back and redo it. You can do the undo button as many times as you need, and I'll go in and recreate those. Ideally, something that is bigger to smaller size to create that look of depth. And again, either sticking with 3 or 5 tends to be best. So I'm gonna make a new layer, move my next layer down to be the first layer above my background. I'm gonna move that brush size back up again to 30%. We're just gonna be creating that top triangle. And again, just making a V shape. And because we moved that layer to be the first one, it is now behind our outer half circles. And now I'm going to go and highlight all of these. Click that little cursor up on the top so I'm moving everything together, and I'm gonna center that again now that I've added my top arrow. Once I have that in place, I am going to start adding color. So I'm going to want to add a layer, move that layer down on top, down on top of just layer number 1 on top of the background. And we're going to be doing a green, a pink, and a subtle yellow for the hills. I want my brush opacity at about 1/3, so keep it about 35%, and the brush size as big as you need to fill in the space. So here I'm just going to start filling in with the blotchy brush and kind of going along the outside first normally so I get my parameters and I'll fill it in. If you have a solid concrete shape, you can still drag the top color picker down and fill that, but since I want the specific brush texture and not a solid fill, I'm just going to go in with the brush and color that in. Once I have that color set, I'm going to go in and grab a orange color, again putting that on a new layer, just above my last one. I'll pick the leftmost hill, and again, I'll kind of outline that first normally, and then I will fill in as we go. And if it gets too far to the outside, you can always grab the eraser tool and erase that. Because this tool is looking kind of like a watercolor brush, I'm not too careful to stay within the lines, but because this is a pretty clean drawing, I am trying to stay within lines, but it's okay if it gets outside of the lines. You can always fix that. So we'll be grabbing our third color as a green. Not too strong of a green, but again, grabbing that palette and lightening that a bit. So we still have our brush selected. Now we're in that new color. I'm gonna go make my brush size a little bit bigger as that's a bigger space. And I'm just gonna go in, do the outline of that brush, or outline of that section that we're gonna wanna fill in. And then you can always increase the brush size and just color that in. I really like this brush because it creates a really great watercolor pattern. If you don't lift up your pen, it will do all one color in that shade. So now for the sun, we're gonna want to make a little bit of we're gonna make a new layer, layer 14, pick a brighter yellow for the sun than we did for the hill. It's important that this color is different from the other ones. So you're gonna fill that in again with that brush, making sure the sun is one full yellow. And once you have that, I'm gonna go in, back to the monoline brush. You can add in more trees if you'd like. I'll add in some little lines for the sun. You can always go back in and add compass lines around the outside. You can add more arrows, so east, west, or south. Here we just have the north arrow. You can kind of customize it to towards your liking. I prefer something pretty simple. As you can see, I went back and undo those last couple strokes. I put 3 on the sun just for a little bit of effect. And that's pretty much it. You can always go and add type or merge those layers all together if you want to keep that and export that. So go up to add, and under add, click add text. And there's tons of different text options there for you to add as well. Here we're just going to leave it this drawing. You can go back to your gallery, swipe, click share, and then you'll have different options there, different file formats to share. I hope this has given you an insight into Procreate, insight into what this platform can do. It's really one of my favorite things at the moment right now to just open this up, start designing, and really look forward to seeing your work. Thank you for joining me on this Procreate tutorial. So happy to have you here. Hopefully you learned a little bit of something about design, or at least got some inspiration. You can follow me at Elena Tall on Instagram, TikTok, any of those platforms. We encourage you to join the design circle at Mighty Networks. It's evolve-network.com. Would love to see your designs and look forward to seeing you.